marriage. Catherine?
Judge Janine, on multiple occasions, Flynn was asked whether he wanted to withdraw his guilty plea or challenge the circumstances surrounding his January 2017 FBI interview. Flynn was discouraged from having a lawyer and not formally warned that false statements could be prosecuted. A critical moment came when Flynn told the court that he knew when the FBI asked him about the Russian ambassador and a December 2016 conversation about sanctions that his lies would be criminal and punishable. The judge chastised Flynn for actions in the West Wing, including lies to the Trump transition team. Quote, "I can't hide my disgust, my disdain for your criminal offense," Judge Emmett Sullivan said. "Not only did you lie to the FBI, you lied to senior officials in the incoming administration." Judge Sullivan, who said he also had concerns about the FBI's handling of the Flynn interview, questioned the basis of the case, asking the special counsel lawyer whether the Flynn phone call with the Russian ambassador was criminal. After a long pause, the government lawyer said it might be a violation of the Logan Act, the judge noting unauthorized contact between U.S. officials and foreign governments is rarely prosecuted. President Trump tweeted good luck to Flynn before the sentencing and after his aides slammed Flynn's treatment by the FBI.
We're arguing that he was certainly ambushed and that the FBI that we know had clear political bias. We've seen that time and time again.
Late today, the transcript from Monday's closed-door session with former FBI Director James Comey was released. On Flynn, House Republicans Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows pressed Comey on why he did not warn the president there may be a national security risk. Quote, Meadows, "You were so concerned that Michael Flynn may have lied or did lie to the vice president, but once you got that confirmed, you didn't believe that it was appropriate to tell the president of the United States?" Mr. Comey, that is correct. He continued, "We had an open investigation, criminal investigation, counterintelligence investigation. There was no way I would discuss that with the president." The FBI director builds cases for prosecution, but also has a responsibility to warn on national security issues, Judge.
All right, Catherine, thank you. And joining us now with analysis of today's big breaking news, the author of The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, and criminal defense attorney David Schoen. Greg, when a judge is scheduled to sentence a defendant in any criminal case, right, normally what happens is the judge sentences on that particular crime for which the defendant is convicted and appearing before him. This judge took an incredible left turn, right turn, and U-turn, talking about treason. He talked about whether or not, Flynn possibly was involved as a foreign agent when he worked in the White House, none of which was before him. Where's this judge coming from?
Well, he all but begged Flynn to withdraw his plea, and when Flynn refused to do so, there was this Jekyll Hyde transformation of Judge Emmett Sullivan, and he began to lash out at Flynn with these unfounded accusations. And honestly, you know this, it's outrageous for a federal judge to make an accusation of treason against someone when treason has absolutely no application. In the end, the judge withdrew it and apologized.
Right.
And
this is unheard of.
He was not only wrong about the law, but he was fundamentally wrong about some of the key facts of the case, and prosecutors actually had to correct him that Flynn wasn't a Turkish agent when he was at the White House. And the judge seemed confused, or he actually hadn't read the file yet.
But David Schoen, we know that he read the file. This is the judge who wanted to know where that 302 of Michael Flynn was. When he didn't get it in 48 hours, he said, I want it on Monday. He gets the 302, and to me, that is his reasoning for saying, he's constantly asking, as Greg just said, do you want to withdraw your plea? Do you want to withdraw your plea? And then he goes after the guy. What's your interpretation of today?
Listen, Emmett Sullivan is one of the most respected judges around. After the Ted Stevens case, he's the judge you want with this kind of government misconduct. But Flynn's lawyers played it cute, in a sense. What's their theory of the case? You always have to have a consistent theory. Flynn decided to cooperate all the way. The government moved for no incarceration. That was his position, too. And then they throw this curveball at the end, which was appropriate. But it's a curveball on the government misconduct if you want to withdraw your plea, not if you want to continue to be a cooperator. Judge Sullivan was left with no place to go, in a sense. As you say, he offered Flynn the opportunity. Flynn had to withdraw it before the sentencing. I thought Flynn should have withdrawn his plea a long time ago. I don't believe that he committed a crime, and if he did, it was a manufactured crime. And as Jim Comey said, Jim Comey got away with what he pulled on Flynn.
Well, we still don't know. Look, hope springs eternal, Sarah Carter. And given what we know about Jim Comey lying again, Cardinal Comey, which is absolutely not stunning at all. But he talks about the fact that that it was McCabe who suggested that Flynn get a lawyer. And then the 302 of McCabe's makes it clear that McCabe is the one who said, you don't need a lawyer here. It's only going to take more time.
Well, absolutely, Judge. I was there at the courthouse today, and I want to talk about a few things that relate to Comey as well. When they talked to the prosecutor, one of the things that they said was, about the Logan Act, and the prosecutors brought that up. Well, could this have been a crime? Well, maybe the Logan Act, and the judge laughed after that. But then you look at Comey's testimony, and he says, well, the reason we went to question Flynn was because of Vice President Mike Pence, because Vice President Pence had made statements that we knew not to be true. But they never go to Vice President Pence and say, these aren't true. Instead, they send two agents. There's no attorney for Flynn. He's left there talking to them at the request of McCabe. And Comey keeps getting caught in lie after lie, or he keeps changing his testimony.
And, the amazing part, Greg, is that when the judge seems to be pushing Flynn, do you want to withdraw your plea? Everything we had seen up to this point was he was game for that. He was game. But now here's my concern. If he's already cooperated to the point where the government says we want no incarceration, why do we need him to work for the next 90 days on the case of his partners who were charged with the Foreign Agents Registration Act violation?
It has nothing whatsoever to do with Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing. This is a judge who said he was deeply concerned about the FBI's interview with Michael Flynn and the impropriety of it all. They lied to him as a basis for it, and then they encouraged him not to get a lawyer. The judge said he was also puzzled by the papers in front of him presented by Robert Mueller's team, as if to say, why are you prosecuting a guy when these papers here tell me he told the truth according to the agents who interviewed him? And it was all going rather splendidly for Michael Flynn until, as David appropriately points out, he refused to withdraw his plea. I agree with David. He should have withdrawn his plea. It's very hard for a judge to vacate it if the defendant insists on pleading.
Although the judge does sua sponte on his own, he can do that, and I might have done it. But, David, that brings us precisely to the point. Why would a man, where the government is saying we're not going to ask for incarceration, all right, they're already on the record for that, where the judge seems inclined to agree that this was an interrogation, not custodial, it requires Miranda, but once they suggested don't bring a lawyer, to me that's a nuance that kicks in Miranda. But now, does it tell you that Flynn is still fearful of Mueller and that his son possibly is the reason?
That's exactly what it tells me. And again, I think that his lawyers made a mistake here, but that you can't be half in and half out. Flynn is going to have to continue to cooperate with these folks because that's what his agreement provides. But yes, I think they turned the screws to Flynn from the start. His family was at risk. He lost everything financially. This is a man who served his country with great distinction and great honor. And this is what has been brought to, not because he committed a crime, but because they put him in a room, didn't believe his answers, and created a crime. Can you imagine if they held Mr. Comey to the same standard, how many crimes he would be prosecuted for the lies?
Right. And
a dozen times.
Yeah, a dozen times, and in front of Congress as well. But, Sarah, I'll give you the last word on this.
Well, I want to say this, Judge Jeanine. The real crime was the leaking of the FISA application and the leaking of Flynn's name to the Washington Post in order to concoct this. That really is a federal crime. And they've never pursued this. They've never went after this. And as far as I know, there's no open case to go after them. So I think we need to question that first and foremost. And hopefully something will come of that in the future.
All right. I think that we are going to bring in Congressman Darrell Issa. Congressman Issa is not available. Okay, so we're going to have you guys stay here. Greg, Sarah, David, stay with us. And today's news surrounding Lieutenant General Flynn had absolutely nothing to do with President Trump, as Greg just said. But that didn't stop the mainstream media's echo chamber from once again predicting the downfall of the administration. Take a look.
The thing that struck me, coming from the White House podium, is saying that this has nothing to do with the president.
Doesn't have to do with me.
How could that even come out of a White House press secretary's mouth?
I think at the end of the day, we're going to see that General Flynn had a lot of incriminating information about the president.
Trump has always treated him with kid gloves as opposed to others in this melodrama, Comey, Michael Cohen, where he's gone hot and cold on them. But he seems very concerned about what Michael Flynn has to say about him.
We don't know why Mike Flynn lied. We don't know whether anyone, including President Trump, directed him to do it. And if Trump did play a role in this, is that why the president is treating Mike Flynn with kid gloves?
The big headline here is judge finds this behavior treasonous. Not just Flynn, but all the people that Flynn coordinated with in creating these lies. It's a bad day for the narrative that this is just a witch hunt and there's nothing serious there.
Joining us now is the author of Why We Fight, Fox News national security strategist Sebastian Gorka. All right, good evening, Dr. Gorka. One of the things that seems to continuously come back at us is James Comey lying or being inconsistent in terms of his own answers regarding the same thing. So, for example, we've got James Comey saying, that it had to be a coincidence that after the tarmac meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, there just happened to be a meeting between Justice and the FBI, but there was never anything mentioned about this.
Not only that, we know that James Comey, after his classified meeting, his briefing with President-elect Trump, he gets into an FBI vehicle and on an FBI laptop writes up a memo that is by nature classified because it's a summary of a meeting with the president, which he gives to his friend, his law professor friend, to leak to the media. That is a crime. Judge, with regards to what happened today, it's very, very clear. I was on the transition team with General Flynn. I worked in the White House with General Flynn. The call to the ambassador, to the Russian ambassador, was utterly legal. That was Mike Flynn's job. The contents of the conversation were likewise utterly legal, requesting potentially the Russian ambassador's support in a vote at the UN to prevent Israel from being boycotted. How is that illegal? But the FBI had the full transcript of the discussion, so why did Jim Comey send those agents to the White House in flagrant denial of White House counsel procedure? It was a classic entrapment ploy.
Well, not legal entrapment in the sense that we prosecutors understand it, but what it was a setup.
A perjury trap. A perjury trap.
Without a doubt. Right. Okay, let's now bring into the conversation Republican Congressman Darrell Issa. All right, good evening, Congressman. The issue Judge. That we just heard a bunch of sound by the mainstream media and those on the left. They've got Flynn guilty of treason. Flynn should be in jail. Flynn is President Trump's puppet. I mean, sometimes I wonder if we're watching the same news. In fact, the prosecutors even said that that's not appropriate treason in this situation. And yet the overreach is nonstop.
Well, you know what Sebastian Gorka just said is very important for your viewers to understand, which is anything he may have done for which he may have to pay a price, he did not. None of it was done, if you will, relative to the investigation of any wrongdoing by the president. Nothing was done there. Yes, he failed to register as a foreign agent. Yes, he lied to the FBI. And whether it's entrapment or not, remember that James Comey had one intention clearly before Donald Trump was president and afterwards, which was to get to Donald Trump. And you can see it in everything he did. He didn't keep Flynn from becoming the national security advisor, which he potentially could have done with this transcript if it was so volatile. He certainly could have told the president that Flynn was misleading or lying to people. which could have affected his being fired sooner, and certainly in the name of national security would have been the right thing to do. James Comey from day one has been a corrupt cop trying to get to the president, and it shows in everything he's done, including what he failed to do, which was to be honest to both Barack Obama and to President Trump when he was talking about what he knew, when he knew it, and what should be done in the name of national security.
All right. And Sebastian Gorka, I mean, the whole concept of the Flynn possibly being a foreign agent and not registering as one, we know now that that was not the case when he was in the White House, and yet the left is suggesting that he was a foreign agent while he was in the White House. That was made absolutely clear that was not the case.
Today's proceedings were a farce. First, the FARA Act. Nobody has gone to jail for writing an op-ed for a NATO ally, which is what General Flynn did. He wrote an op-ed piece supporting the Turkish government. We're not at war with Turkey, no matter how much we dislike Erdogan. Secondly, this totally spurious Logan Act charge against the National Security Advisor. If the Logan Act were about a serious crime, John Kerry should be doing 20 to life right now for his secret negotiations with Iran after he left office and when the Trump administration came into power. Where's John Kerry's arrest? Why isn't he being woken up at 2 a.m. and put in manacles and shackles? It's absolute absurdity.
And the fear, Congressman Issa, you know, as we listen to the facts, and we're getting the facts out here, the fear is that none of the illegality, the unethical behavior on the part of the people on the left, are they going to ever be made accountable for? They skated during Obama's 8 years, and they're skating through these first 2 years because of good old Jeff Sessions. I haven't heard a word from this guy Huber, and, you know, hope springs eternal as it relates to this new guy. But what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think the insurance policy that Lisa Page and Peter Strzok talked about has been working for 2 years. For 2 years, the American people have been distracted from the real accomplishments of this president, and he has been forced to both do the work of the president and to deal with these endless assaults. Let's face it. 2 years ago, James Comey did not tell the president things he should have told him because he was trying to indict the president.
Exactly.
It is now 2 years later, and he still doesn't have a case, even with a special prosecutor of essentially his buddy Mueller.
Yes, it is his buddy Mueller, indeed, Sebastian. His buddy Mueller is a guy that, you know, was his guardian angel during those famous John Ashcroft hospital moments that he remembers vividly, but can't remember 245 times anything that's happened in the last few months when he appears before Congress.
Yeah, that's his example of leadership and being loyal to the truth. The fact is, Robert Mueller is in such a conflict of interest from day one of becoming special counsel. Why? Rod Rosenstein. We have to recall this. Rod Rosenstein made him special counsel to investigate the president the day after Rod Rosenstein escorted him to the White House to interview for the job of FBI director again. Robert Mueller crashed and burned in that interview. The president said, no, I need new blood. You're not going to be the new director. Less than 24 hours later, Rod Rosenstein makes him the special counsel to investigate the man in front of whom he failed to get his old job back. How can he be an impartial investigator? He can't. He should never have accepted that commission.
Well, I hear Congressman Issa saying exactly. All right. Thank you so much. And coming up, we'll preview the looming government shutdown as the funding for the wall on our southern border now hangs in the balance. Stay with us. The Democrat hysterics have already begun. Republicans offered to compromise on the amount of funding for the wall, but the Democrats immediately rejected that deal. Earlier tonight, President Trump tweeted, quote, The Democrats are saying loud and clear that they do not want to build a concrete wall, but we are not building a concrete wall. We are building artistically designed steel slats so that you can easily see through it. It will be beautiful and at the same time give our country the security that our citizens deserve. It will go up fast and save us billions of dollars a month once completed. Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Charles Hurt, GOPAC chairman David Avella, and former Clinton pollster and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Okay, Doug, now you were laughing here. Now, the wall with the beautiful slats, are you questioning whether we're actually going to get that?
I don't think we're going to get the wall. I mean, I think the deal that should have been done last week was the $1.6 billion in border security, fund the government, and move forward. I think this is, frankly, a setback for the cause of border security and building the wall, and also a setback for democracy, because the fact that we can't fund the government, and I understand it's only a partial shutdown we're facing, but this is pathetic.
Well, but you know what? This isn't Trump's fault. I mean, at the end of the day, David Avella, I mean, what we're talking about is border security, which has been kicked down the road since, actually, I think 1986. But, you know, last I remember is 2006. And, you know, now what we've got are Schumer and Pelosi saying it's a non-starter. It's not happening. You're not getting the wall. Are we getting the wall?
Ed, to your point there, Judge, that here you have a preview of what the next 2 years is going to be like. Look, over the last 2 years, we had 10 Senate Democrats in states that President Trump won. It was in their interest to find common ground with the president. Going into the 2020 elections, there's two: Doug Jones of Alabama and Gary Peters of Michigan. There are less Democrats now willing to work with the president on border security, on health care, on the economy. Why? Because it's in their interest to obstruct and investigate and ultimately seek to impeach the president.
You know, Charles, the idea of the $1.6 billion from I think it was last week that, you know, the Dems shot down, and now what we've got is the president through Sarah Sanders suggesting that there is money from other departments that can be transferred so that he can build the wall, specifically from Homeland Security and I believe the Pentagon. Is that viable?
Well, I think that if you talk to people, that have studied this for a long time, and as you point out, Judge, this is a problem that has been kicked down the road since 1986. The lawmakers in Washington refused to fix the problem that they promised to fix back then. But funding the wall has never been the real big problem here. And the real problem is the will to actually do the hard work of putting up a wall and taking those votes. The only thing we have found out in the last 2 weeks is that Democrats that are coming into control the House and the Senate in Congress have vowed to shut the government down instead of doing something about fixing the border. And whether you call it a wall or a fence or what, the President Trump's wonderful description of it through those tweets you just read, whatever you call it, it is a barrier that prevents people from illegally crossing into the United States. And Democrats have made it very clear that they are on the side of opposing that. And President Trump and Republicans have made it very clear they're on the side of supporting that. And even Democrats who supported, say, the 1996 or the 2006 Fence Act, which did basically the same thing, which was to build a barrier to keep people from sneaking into the country illegally. Even a lot of those Democrats have now been pulled by the left wing of their party over into this no borders, anti-ICE, sanctuary city crowd that opposes doing anything about the border.
And you know, Doug, the idea of a wall, a secure fence from 2006, you had Schumer, Pelosi, Obama, they were all, you know, singing the cheers of it. The American people are not stupid. They are in favor of a border. They understand we need to be a sovereign nation. In essence, what they're saying is we're going to obstruct, we're proud to obstruct, and they're almost going against the American people as well.
There's one other component of this you haven't mentioned, Judge, is we have 11 million people who are here illegally. We need a pathway to citizenship and a wall. We need border security. We need a compromise. And that's what politics is about when you have divided government, which we will have in a couple of weeks.
And that's what the president did when he offered DACA to 1.8 million DACA kids, which is double what
negotiating,
Obama
Mr.
did.
President.
And yeah,
Keep
but you know
negotiating.
what? Well, he was negotiating in good faith, and they didn't buy it. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, Trace Gallagher has the latest on the former Green Beret who is being charged with murder for killing a suspected terrorist. Then I get reaction from General Tony Tata and Colonel David Hunt, who will tell you exactly why you should be outraged. Don't go away. And is considering reviewing the case of Major Goldstein, a Green Beret who has been charged with the murder of a Taliban bomb maker. Trace Gallagher joins us now from the West Coast newsroom with the latest. Trace?
Good evening, Judge. National security experts say as Commander-in-Chief, President Trump is well within his rights to review any current or past military case, but they believe when the president publicly said he would review the murder charge against former Special Forces Major Matt Goldstein, he might appear to be pressuring lower-level commanders, though the president's intent remains very unclear. Goldstein admitted during a job interview with the CIA that in 2010 he killed a suspected Afghan bomb maker. The Army launched an investigation, stripped Goldstein of his Special Forces patch and Silver Star, but did not charge him. Then after Goldstein again admitted to killing the insurgent on Fox News, the Army reopened the case and filed charges. Here's former Congressman and retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Watch.
What I find just absolutely disingenuous and disconcerting is that he has already gone through one investigation, and there was nothing that found it to take this toward a court-martial hearing.
Goldstein's parents say they welcomed the president's review of the case, but his wife thinks it is unnecessary. Listen to her.
For them to charge him with premeditated murder is almost laughable, and it would be laughable if it wasn't so serious and disgusting.
The military version of a grand jury will now decide if there is enough evidence to prosecute Goldstein. Judge.
Trace, thanks so much. President Trump has spoken out about Major Goldstein, with some saying the president may be improperly influencing the case due to his role as commander-in-chief. General Tony Tata has a new op-ed out on FoxNews.com addressing the question. He writes, quote, Trump is perfectly within his authority to review the case of Green Beret charged with murder. Joining me now with reaction, author of Dark Winter, General Tony Tata, and Fox News contributor, Colonel David Hunt. All right, Colonel Hunt, I'm going to go to you first. This guy is a decorated war hero. He is someone who is a combat veteran. He's got Distinguished Service Cross. He's got the Silver Star, all kinds of medals of honor, or medals, I should say. And he ends up killing the enemy under circumstances that apparently his superiors don't like. Can you tell us what happened?
Sure. And Merry Christmas, by the way. Matt Goldstein was then a captain in 2010 in the largest battle in the history of the Afghan war, the Battle of Marja. There was two Marines killed by a Taliban bomb maker that the CIA identified. Captain Goldstein's Special Forces team found this guy, captured him, and because there was not a detention center or an intel center nearby, turned him over to the Afghans. The Afghanis, surprise, released this terrorist. Captain Goldstein's team found him again and killed him. They killed him in combat in a massive war. They did the exact right thing. The problem is that some in the Army think, no, he should have been turned back again. Here's the problem. If the guys get turned back and he kills somebody else, now they'd be charging Goldstein with dereliction of duty. They stripped Goldstein a year later from his Distinguished Service Cross, his Silver Star, and his Special Forces qualifications. Unheard of. And now they're trying to go after him for murder. I think the President of the United States had great instincts in texting this. because it rekindled interest in this great injustice.
Okay, General Tater, I read your op-ed piece. What Colonel Hunt said is very interesting. Had this guy that they ended up killing in 2010 killed someone else, then Goldstein would have been charged with dereliction of duty. Why do you think the Afghans, after they captured this guy who was making bombs that killed 2 Marines, why would they cut him loose? I mean, what are the rules over there?
Well, the rules, Judge, are that the intelligence community is supposed to have field detention sites, particularly when you have, as Colonel Hunt said, a major battle like Marja happening. It was the largest battle that we had in Afghanistan. And you're going to have detainees, and proper planning at the time would have allowed for a field detention center where intelligence community, military intelligence community folks would have processed detainees that are a threat to U.S. or coalition forces or have intelligence value. And clearly this individual had both. Goldstein should have never seen this guy again. He should have been taken off the battlefield and processed up through. And if you remember, this is when McChrystal had already put in a request to President Obama for a surge of troops back in September, 6 months before, and Obama took a year to get McChrystal the troops. And so this was a major failure of the intelligence community, and Major Goldstein should not even have ever seen that individual again.
Was Goldstein right? I'm going to ask you both one question. Was Goldstein right in killing him, General?
Yeah, given the circumstances, yes, he was correct.
Colonel, was he correct in killing him?
Absolutely, I'd have done it and do it again. Absolutely, he was right.
Okay. Is it the rules of engagement that's... I'm not even going to ask that question. Why is this taking so long? It's 2018. Hunt.
Yeah, the problem is that the Special Operations Community, the Department of the Army, Department of Defense have twice investigated this guy and found nothing there. And it's because of a lot of general officers' reputations and the argument about ROE. This should never have happened. It's a massive injustice, and it needs to be corrected, and it can be corrected in a matter of hours, easily.
Okay, so General Tater, and I assume you agree with Colonel Hunt, well, who's dragging this guy down?
Well, what I see is that, President Obama weaponized all the agencies, and this happened back in 2016 when he went on Fox News, which, Obama wasn't a fan of Fox News, so I don't think it's a coincidence. And now what we have is a weaponized agency that is going after this individual, which is why I'm very happy that President Trump tweeted out that he was going to review this case, because what he's doing, he's shining a spotlight, Judge,
on it. Okay, so let's talk about that review. There's talk, Colonel Hunt, that this review is something that is improper, the president exerting unlawful command influence. Is that hogwash, or is that accurate?
No, everyone considers that in the chain of command, but this is the President of the United States who sees an injustice, and his instincts are right about this. And that's the reason we're talking about it. It's not because it was the wrong thing to do to a great guy. It's also, it just smells bad. And it's easily corrected. And there's about 4 or 5 things that have to happen to correct this insidious thing that's done to a very great guy.
Okay, and General Tater, isn't there a difference between exerting influence by interfering or being seen as interfering when you're interfering for the benefit of the individual as opposed to the detriment? My understanding from guys for the Uniform Military Justice Code is that, since the president would be the prosecutor, I mean, who's going to object? Who's going to raise the complaint?
Right. Trust me, the Department of Defense is going to have enough prosecutors with their fangs in Goldstein. So the president has come out and in a very neutral tweet that says, I'm going to review the case. And as is his right and as is his duty to do so. And so by doing that, as I mentioned, he's really just saying, well, I'm going to shine a spotlight on this and everything better be on the up and up. Yep. And he left himself enough room that if something untoward did happen, then, he can review it and say, well, something untoward did happen, and we need to go in that direction.
All
so
right, Colonel
I don't
Hunt,
think that's the case.
Colonel Hunt, final word on this thing. You seem you are the recipient of many medals, including Distinguished Service Cross as well. And I know you don't like to talk about this, but you found that they're taking his medals to be one of the most outrageous things about this case. Now, here's the guy who's they're charging him with premeditated murder. You were so offended by that. Tell us why.
The 30 years of service, 18 years of Fox, I've never heard of it. Now, what you do after you've done the action that gets you the medal has nothing to do with the day you got the medal. It's just not done. It shows that the United States Army was really going after this guy to take his DSC Silver Star and a Special Operations badge away. Is after they said no, it was after they had two boards that they found nothing wrong. It's terrible, and it's just never done. Yeah. And it's such an insult to the service and to this great guy and to the medals themselves. It was really overstepping themselves, and it shows how badly they've been treating Matt.
All right. Well, General Tater, Colonel Hunt, thanks so much for your insight. We're going to stay on top of this one. This case fascinates me. Anyway, up next, Democrats are just weeks away from officially retaking the House, and they're already scheming to impeach the president. Coming up, we'll lay out how one House committee is plotting investigation after investigation. Hannity continues after the break. Taking control of the House next month, they're gearing up for investigation after investigation, unleashing new probes on everything from border apprehensions to travel expenses, email use, and of course, more phony Russia collusion. The only question is, how far will they go? Joining us now for reaction, Fox News contributors both, Rachel Campos-Duffy and Jessica Tarloff. All right, good evening. Let's talk about how far will they go, Jessica?
As far as they need to go. Everyone is scaling off of any talk of impeachment, but this is their constitutional right and what the obligation to be conducting oversight, as Elijah Cummings has said. And it's certainly a long time coming here. Elections have consequences, and the American public elected Democrats to be a check on this administration. The Republicans have had control of this for 6 years. We've seen investigation after investigation focused on Hillary Clinton a lot of the time, email investigations, IRS, that they're going after Tea Party groups when in fact they were also going after progressive groups. Benghazi, which Kevin McCarthy admitted was actually a political stunt to hurt her poll numbers.
Well, in the end, though, I mean, and Rachel Campos-Duffy, you're going to have to agree with this. In the end, it is, as Jessica says, it is the consequence, the positive consequence of winning.
Well, first of all, one of the first things they're going to do is shut down investigations into the DOJ and the FBI and the corruption that happened there. So there goes the idea that they're after, the truth and finding out what's really happening. They're not. This is an agenda about destroying Trump and slowing down and slowing down the president's agenda, which they know has been very successful in reducing poverty, reducing dependency, growing the economy. They have to stop that before 2020. And that's what these people will do. These are not your JFK Democrats. These are radicals. They have gavels in their hands now at very powerful committees. And this is what they're going to do. And I'm going to tell you what, Judge, they want to do this. They have a constitutional right to do this, but they will pay the price in 2020 because this is not what the American people want. The American people want deals. And what they're seeing, even today, you had earlier on your show, this discussion about the border. They have no desire to compromise or find a middle ground. They threw the DACA kids under the bus because they didn't want to give the president the money that they wanted. They threw the people they claimed to care about under the bus.
Jessica,
so
but
I don't think it's going to work.
What Rachel is saying is accurate in the sense that whatever House, whatever party has oversight in the House, the truth is that this has very little to do with the legislative agenda. It has very little to do with laws that are being passed on behalf of the American people. I really think that oversight and reform, because there rarely is a prosecution after oversight and reform, is more about just getting out the message and, the ability to frame the public perception on an issue.
I certainly think that's an important function of it. But when you look at the list, and I believe Axios published 85 potential things they could be looking into, these are things that the American public are focused on right now, especially concerning what's going on with the Mueller probe, the SDNY filings.
Oh, God.
We just found
Jessica,
out. Don't God me, Rachel. And I got something to say.
Hang on, guys. Rachel, hang on. Rachel, hang on. Go ahead.
We just heard today that the Trump Foundation was really nothing more than a slush fund, and not the Clinton Foundation, the Trump Foundation. Trump University had a $25 million fraud investigation into it. We know that the president is profiting off of his office, the family. You have the whole Saudi royal contingent that's staying at the Trump hotel.
The Saudi money that Hillary took to her foundation and never reported it?
Yeah,
now, Rachel, I'm going to let you get in. Now, Rachel, go ahead.
I just want to say you are living, Jessica, in a New York City, D.C. Beltway bubble, because outside in real America, where I live here in Wisconsin, nobody talks about Russia. Nobody does. They all just want to live their lives, have enough money for their families, take care of their businesses,
so why did they elect
have a
Democrats,
job.
Rachel?
That's what they care about, and that's what these investigations are about.
Why did they elect Democrats? We may have 41 seats in the House, 7 gubernatorial seats, hundreds of legislative seats. They want Republicans to
stop the gridlock, and because
they don't want you guys anymore.
They didn't vote for the Democrats for more investigating this administration to death. What they wanted was compromise. They want government to work. It's that simple. The American people aren't as sinister as the people in Washington, D.C., and a lot of us pundits think they are.
Jessica, you do have to agree that there wasn't anything that President Trump suggested that the Democrats didn't resist or obstruct or not be a part of. ISIS, from what I'm hearing from the president now, he's looking to work with the Democrats.
He has no choice now.
He does have a choice. I'll tell you why he has a choice. Because the House does nothing. Everything depends on the Senate.
Right.
All right. There's no legislative agenda that they can pass.
Chuck Schumer sat down there and offered him $1.6 billion for his border wall, which I think he should take. Now he's up there tweeting about it. It's going to be slats, and I don't need a full wall.
All right.
Democrats will work with him on an agenda that benefits the American people, but that means getting rid of this tax plan that didn't benefit the average. We have to go.
We do have to go. Thank you. All right. Coming up next, you won't want to miss our video of the day. One young boy got a very special Christmas present. That's next. One little boy got the surprise of a lifetime when he opened up an early Christmas present. His military dad, home for the holidays. It's tonight's video of the day. Watch.
You better open it.
Open it. Open it, monkey. I see the box already.
What do you think it is? What's in there?
Nine. Whoa! What is it?
What is it?
What is it? Oh my God!
What's wrong, buddy?
Oh, baby.
We want to take a moment to say thank you to all the members of our military who won't be able to celebrate Christmas with their